going to do a quick little intro here. I had accidentally screwed up, and when I went to go record this, I didn't switch anything over so you guys saw any of the video. So instead, you just hear my voice over my testimony. I'm doing this little intro to let you guys know that you're going to see just a picture and some like background stuff that means absolutely nothing, but it's still very important to hear my testimony out. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I don't normally do this, but guys, I would love to do live videos on YouTube. So I got to get that 50 subscriber mark to go live. If you guys can help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. If not, it's not a big deal, right? Because God's going to work through this no matter what anyway. But thank you very much for watching, and tune in for my testimony. Have a great day, and God bless. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Making Heaven Crowded. I am your host, Michael Martin, and I am going to apologize for it being so long since the last episode. I have some technical difficulties with some things, and plans haven't panned out. So it was laid on my heart last night to redo my testimony. I have uploaded it previously on other platforms in small amounts, because other platforms you can't do long form video, but luckily here on YouTube we can. So this is going to be long, possibly heartbreaking, but trust me, stay till the end, because there is great news. There's absolutely great news at the end. My parents had me at a young age. They didn't make it. They didn't stick together. They got divorced when I was 3 or 4 years old, and ever since then, it's my life was like chaotic, right? Went to go live with my dad, with my sister, Kathy, at the time, and my dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force, and he had to get babysitters. Well, life was a lot different back in the 80s when it came to stuff like that, right? You couldn't, there was no like internet to search up and vet babysitters like there is today. And, you kind of just look for word of mouth or other forms of advertising. My dad found a babysitter, and she was a mess, right? This girl was just absolutely a mess. But anyway, she was young. Excuse me. She was young, and so she ran with her crowd of friends, and they were all younger, and she liked to party. I guess that's the best way to put it. She liked to party, and when my dad had left us with her one day, and she had taken us over to a friend's house. And that friend of hers had a younger sister that was probably 12, 13, something like that. And we went for a walk with the younger sister, my sister Kathy and I, and we ended up at this abandoned building. It was like a rundown shack, if you will. But it was brick, right? The windows were all busted out. There was no glass. It was just, I don't know. This was in Alabama. It was just, it was old. It was really old. We get in there, and there was a few other kids in there, mainly boys. On the walls were a bunch of ripped out magazine pictures of porno magazines, like very explicit. And like I was 5 or 6 at the time. I'm not quite sure the exact age, but I was really young. And mind you, I had blocked out a lot of this. And I'll explain like the rest of the story here in a minute. But when the boys were smoking cigarettes and they had forced me to attempt to have sexual intercourse with that 13-year-old girl, like under threats of violence. I can picture, like, I can't picture the faces of them really, like, not in super detail where I can describe it. Like, I can picture it in my head, right? I'm the quote-unquote leader of this group of boys was this blonde-haired kid, and it came to me last night. Kind of reminded me of Joffrey from Game of Thrones, which makes a lot of sense why I couldn't stand that kid, and why when they killed him off in that show, I stopped watching it because I felt satisfied. I didn't need to finish watching the show. That boy had, in my opinion, right, got what he deserved. Anyway, stuff like that went on with different friends of this one babysitter. That one babysitter ended up becoming my stepmom. My dad married her, and that was chaotic as well. Where the dad of that girl like threatened my dad. I remember running out with like a plastic He-Man sword, wanted to fight the guy. Like it was just a whole bunch of bad situation. And my dad did the best he could. I don't blame my dad. I don't. He did the best that he could with what he had to work with, and being in the military and being a single dad at the same time with custody of two kids, it was hard on him. But he did what he had to do. Those memories, they were repressed for many years. We're gonna fast forward a little bit to when I went to go live with my mom. It was a nasty custody battle between my dad and my mom, and I remember a lawyer sitting down with my sister and I, making us choose who we wanted to live with at a very young age. I think at this point I was maybe 7, right? So that abuse stuff happened with a bunch of different babysitters and all that up until that I went to go live with my mom. And I chose my mom, my sister chose my dad, and the judge ruled in favor of my mom to get custody of my sister and I. And I know it broke my dad's heart. Like, considering everything that I've gone through and currently going through with my own kids, I know it broke my dad's heart. And but I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know what was going on, really. And the fact that they made us sit down at such a young age and choose who we wanted to live with was kind of messed up, in my opinion. But I guess, the court system back then was not that great. Still isn't that great, but it was pretty bad back then. So my mom was a single mom. We bounced around from like place to place. We were with my grandparents for a little bit. She got her own apartment for a while. And then she met my first stepdad, and Andy. He was great. Like, he was a great father figure, right? He was a great dad. And Andy, if you're watching this right now, I still stick by that. You are a great dad. And he ended up joining the Navy. Right around the time of Desert Storm. Like, I think he was in basic training or just finished basic training when Desert Storm broke out. He ended up on a ship, the USS Puget Sound, and on their way over. And my whole experience with the Navy at that point was Top Gun. So I thought, that's what he did. I thought he was like flying F-14s and stuff. And I really looked up to him for that. Yeah, I didn't know, again, until later in life that that's not what he did, but it didn't matter because I still looked up to him. We moved around a lot again as a kid, just because, the military, and we would bounce back and forth on the summers and some Christmases with my dad, and he had met someone, my stepmom now, and he obviously divorced that babysitter from way back in the day because that was just toxic. That was a toxic relationship. And when I was that young, my mom and my dad and step parents, they were, we tried to keep us kids in church, and we went every Sunday to Sunday school. Vacation Bible school happened, when we were kids, and when during the summertime, going over to my dad's, we were in church every Sunday, and it was good. We had a good foundation, but I had already been traumatized as a kid, and I didn't realize what was going on inside of my head, and I was angry like all the time. I gravitated towards horror movies. I gravitated towards angry music, just like rap music. I remember even it was like Christian rap when I was living with my mom. She hated it. She hated rap music, but I would play it and blast it because I knew it upset her, even though it was Christian, like DC Talk, Carmen, like that type. My very first concert was a Christian concert. It was Carmen. It was in Orlando, Florida. And we had that solid background. And I asked Jesus to come into my heart. I remember during that time. And I think already I'm like 12, 13 when we lived in Florida. It was before 13, so maybe 11, 12. And that was good. 13 years old. I got tired of moving around. Because we were when we lived with my dad, we moved around all the time because of the military. When we lived with my mom, when my stepdad joined the Navy, we moved around all the time because of the military. Well, my dad had gotten out, settled down with Sherry, my stepmom. They lived in Ohio, and my sister Kathy had already gone and lived with them. And I was at 13. I decided I was going to go live with my dad just because I got tired of moving around. We lived in Bowling Green, Ohio, like my junior high years, or two of my junior high years, rather. And we were going to church every Sunday. We were the whole family was really involved in the church there. Day Spring Assembly of God is where we went. And it was fun, but I wasn't focused. I was never focused on God. I was never focused on Christ. I was focused on doing my own thing. I wanted, man, I was spoiled. I was a spoiled kid. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to play on the computer all the time, and I was playing video games like Doom and stuff like that. And my dad hated that game. I went to a birthday party my junior high, and we ripped up a Barney dinosaur or whatever because we didn't like Barney. My dad thought that was wrong, and I look at it now and it's yeah, it was wrong. Not as wrong as I could have been, and not as bad as I could have been, but it was still wrong, right? But I always had that oh, Dad, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing any of the bad stuff out there, or bad stuff that I could have been doing. I was, thought I was having harmless fun. Well, it started a rift between my dad and I at that point. The rift was already there because even though I don't blame my dad now for what happened to me as a kid, I think I still blamed him. But I had already blocked out those memories, right? The human brain, oh God, made the human brain protectorate of you, right? But so I had blocked out those memories for a while, but I still had that resentment and that hate in my heart for what happened. My dad and I would get into each other's faces, and I was a bad kid. I was a bully. I wanted to be in a gang, so I told a bunch of people that I was in a gang when we moved from Bowling Green to this really small podunk town in Ohio called Gibsonburg. And when we moved there, I told them I was in the Crips, and I was dumb. I was really into rap music. I was listening to like Bone Thugs and Harmony and Tupac and music like that. I got into this group called Insane Clown Posse when I was there, ICP. If you don't know who they are, that's fine. Don't Google it. You don't have to search them up. Their music is not Christian at all. But I kept trying to say that they had a positive message because they talked about, in their music, they talked about killing racist people, killing bigots, rapists, things like that. It was not something a Christian should be listening to, but also I was making excuses to listen to it. And I got really, really into them. And I had ostracized myself because of the whole calling myself in a gang thing when I was in Gibsonburg, and became like an outcast. Had very few friends, but I didn't care because it didn't matter to me. I was probably going to move anyway, is the way I looked at it, because that's what I did my entire life. And so we were there for another 2 years. And I got really into like band and marching band and things like that. But, so I was a band geek, but I was claiming to be this gangbanger. Anyway, we moved from Gibsonburg to Washington State, Vancouver, Washington. That's where I finished out my high school years. When I went there, I wanted to start fresh. I didn't start with the lies and all that stuff. I wanted to start fresh. I embraced my geek, my inner nerd, whatever you want to call it, when I was there. And continued with band, learned a bunch of different instruments, like the tenor sax, I started with the clarinet, then went to bass clarinet, but then like the tenor sax I learned the sousaphone, I was all over the place in band. I loved music, and I started to mature a little bit more, right, where my stepmom and I were able to have conversations and stuff. And I think it was the summer of my junior year, my sister and I were, or it could have been the summer before my junior year, one or two, I don't remember. We went to my mom's for the summer, and then when I came back, all my music was gone. Like my CDs and all that stuff were destroyed. My parents found them, like all the ICP CDs, like probably hundreds of dollars worth of CDs, and it was warranted, right? It was warranted, right? But I was extremely upset about it. My senior year, I decided to go into the Air Force, even though I really wanted to continue with video productions, because I was like president of the video productions club. Like I was a nerd, but I was really into the video production side. And my dad thought it was a pipe dream, and looking back on it now, I'm glad, because it kind of solidified my intent to go into the Air Force. Spent the summer of my senior year being a kid, or summer after my senior year being a kid, just going to movies, hanging out with my friends, knowing I was going to basic training in August. And this is 1999. I remember going to MEPS. That was a horrible experience to be at MEPS for all day, all the testing they got to do there. It was like pre-basic training, right? They didn't treat you right. They were like treating you like garbage, and it is what it is. It's the military. On the flight down to basic training from Portland, Oregon to San Antonio, I remember just thinking to myself, I need to turn off my brain. I need to turn off my brain. Lord, turn off my brain. Went to basic training. Brain was turned off. I just did what I was told. And I was still kind of I got in trouble in basic training at the end of it because found out later, but they did these inspections. They found threads in the uniform, and the bed wasn't made properly, quote unquote, and found out that we had a guy, he was called like the dorm rat. He purposely messed people's stuff up. So the training instructors, the TIs is what we call them in the Air Force. Drill instructors is what you hear the Army and the Marines call them. He had messed up like people's stuff on purpose. So there's like 5 of us that got in trouble, and we ended up having to do a sweep of the flight line, they call it the flight line, but it was actually the workout pad where we were. We had to sweep it for 8 hours instead of being able to enjoy like the day of graduation, like with my parents in San Antonio. That's what happened. Go on to my training, my tech school after that in Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. And when I got there, I went bad. I started drinking. I started smoking. I had lost my virginity at that point. You know what? I'm not going to explain how that happened or what happened. I don't want to fully incriminate myself, but I was bad. I was just doing all sorts of bad things. When I started going to the tech school, found out that I was going to school for guidance and control systems on airplanes. I was lied to by my recruiter because that's what he signed me up for. I wanted to do computer stuff. I wanted computer work. And then this was not. This was like you're having to walk on airplane wings and check in spoilers and ailerons and all of that fun stuff. And I am deathly afraid of heights. And I ended up, when they started training you, they also talked about all the bad things that can happen. I ended up making a list of all the ways I could die doing this job. I washed out of that because I know I couldn't do it. And I didn't want to. I ended up in AFI, which is waiting for their instructions for almost a year until I found another job. And during that time, I joined the Air Force band at Keesler Air Force Base. Like we did parades at Mardi Gras and things like that. I had a little bit more leeway because I was working directly for the captain. Like I was pretty much his assistant or whatever, secretary. That was my job. And so I ended up with a little bit more leeway. I ended up going down to Mardi Gras in 2000. Probably don't have to say too much there, but there was a lot of drinking involved and started messing up with money, writing bad checks, all sorts of stuff. I was just bad. Got me in trouble. And then they were the last time that I went there, and I wrote a check to Hooters that bounced, but I had found my next training school, which was in San Antonio, where I learned the job that I did in the Air Force, which is to load and download cargo off of the cargo planes, C-17, C-130s, things like that. Got to my permanent duty station, which was McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington, and that bad check, that last one, followed me there. So my first day or second day there in McCord, I was in my first sergeant's office getting in trouble, getting a letter of reprimand, an LOR, for a bounce check. Then continued drinking. Like, alcohol was a big problem. I was just drunk all the time. my nickname used to be Jester, and I used to have the handle of DFC Jester and all that. DFC was a stupid little group that I made up. It was the drunkest crew, and yeah, that's what we did. We were just drinking, and then 9/11 happened. Got called in after the first tower hit. After our night of drinking bad, we got recalled. All of us were called in. I walked into the our shop area, and everybody was in the break room. So I walked into the break room just in time to see the second tower get hit, and then continued watching the news. The Pentagon getting hit. I think it was flight 1080. No, 93. The flight 93, the one that went down in Pennsylvania. Like, we were watching all of that, and we knew when we couldn't get a hold of anybody. Obviously, all the circuits are busy, is like trying to call people, and even though my dad was maybe 2.5 hours away at that point, like I still couldn't get through to him because all the lines were like busy. They shut down everything. First airplane that took off after that came from my Air Force base on the West Coast. First airplane on the West Coast. It was an AWACS plane, while all other flights were grounded. And 30 days later, you know what? Let me back up real quick. So I was there for almost a year when before 9/11 hit, and during that time I was fighting depression. I got put into the mental ward of the hospital on the Air Force base for a little bit. Had to go through anger management. They had found fake guns in my room during an inspection that I guess they thought were real, but they were plastic ones. But I had them mounted, like they were spray painted and mounted, and I guess they looked kind of real. I got in trouble for that, but then I was like fighting back. I had a problem with authority, and I had a tech sergeant that was always picking on me, and he wanted me to have spit-shined boots after coming in off the flight line, like pushing cargo pallets. And hey, I felt like he was picking on me, right? And I didn't take it, and I had threatened to kill him. Got in trouble for that. That's what put me into the mental hospital. Found out I was suicidal. I had attempted to swallow a bunch of pills, but I was really dumb about that. A bunch of I took a bunch of everything I had in the medicine cabinet, but it wasn't much of anything. Ibuprofen, Tylenol, like NyQuil, stuff like that. It wasn't much of anything, but that came out during all of that. So I got dealt with when it came to that. And then moving back to 9/11, right after 9/11, we ended up deploying. My first deployment was to Oman, where there wasn't a whole lot we could do. I was smoking like a ton at this point. I was going through like 2 cartons of cigarettes a week because I got bored. What else am I going to do? We had drinking tents. I was underage still at this point. I wasn't even 21 yet. I was just 20, right? I just turned 20. But people were sneaking me alcohol, and it was DJing some nights. We had bands, like bass bands or whatever, that would play on some nights. Met a lot of cool celebrities. I met like Drew Carey and like the cast of the Drew Carey show and the Whose Line Is It Anyway people. They came through during that time. The Band of Brothers people came through, which is kind of funny. And one of the actors from Band of Brothers, he was the main actor in Office Space. I was in line at the chow hall, and I didn't realize this guy was in front of me. So when I was getting like my breakfast. The guys that were serving, one of the guys that was serving the breakfast, would you like some eggs? I was like, yeah, that'd be great, thanks. And then it was Ron. Ron was his name. I can't remember his last name, but he turns around and he just starts laughing. And I was like, oh man, I feel so sheepish right now. It's not what I said. I'm definitely making this a PG story, right? But I was like, oh, I feel so bad about right now, man. I just like, I didn't know that was you in front of me, and now it's like, no, it was funny. It was funny, and I got to talk to him a little bit. That was cool. Get back home after a 90-day tour turned into 120 days. Get back home. We were only home for 2 months, and I became a security forces augmentee during that, and I got the training for security forces for that for one of those months. And then we ended up deploying again, and this time went out to Kyrgyzstan. But I was a little late getting there because I had gotten some financial trouble with a car that I had purchased, and I was gone. I wasn't making the payments on the car, and I ended up doing stupid financial stuff, and so I had to deal with that, and I was I think it was like 2 weeks after everybody else. I was supposed to be on that team, but I ended up going 2 weeks after. So because of that, I ended up flying on my own without my people into Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and then finally, like, I landed in Afghanistan, and I was in Afghanistan for 2 weeks. During that time, there was or no, I don't think it was 2 weeks. It was a week. I was in Afghanistan for a week. During that time, like, we had to sleep in flak vests and helmets, and like, it was war. Like, it was an actual war zone. Because I wasn't even on the Air Force base. They had me on the Army base over there, or the Army part of it. That's where they put me up. And you could hear the fighting, like, you hear the guns, you hear mortars, you hear all of that stuff. And especially late at night. And I wasn't working, but I was deathly afraid. I couldn't wait to get the heck out of there. Finally did get to Kyrgyzstan. Horrible conditions out there in Kyrgyzstan. It was wintertime. Wintertime was like negative 37 degrees. I worked nights, which made it even colder. Crud. And then I ended up being forward deployed with another like 5 people to go down to Uzbekistan. And then I was in Uzbekistan for 60 days. And again, during all this time, we weren't supposed to be drinking, but we were drinking. Like, we had people sending us alcohol, and people coming in, like, flight line people we knew were coming in from Turkey where they were allowed to drink, so they'd bring us alcohol and stuff like that. And then people got in trouble. We were gambling. General order number 1: no drinking, no gambling, no pornography. That was the general order number 1, pretty much. And you can get in a lot of trouble if you get caught. Luckily, I never did really get caught with that, but we had people that did. While I was in Uzbekistan, I had my foot run over by a forklift. Combination of my fault and the forklift driver's fault, because he was a younger airman and he was just learning how to drive this 10K AT forklift, which is an all-terrain. It's a forklift with monster truck tires on it, and it folded. It had locked my left heel into the tire and folded it from the heel to the toe. Surprised I didn't break anything. Ended up obviously being rushed into the med tent and x-rays and all that crap. They put me on Percocet. Percocet wasn't working. I was gaining a lot of weight at this time, like eating all the time, stopped working out, was drinking. It was like 300 pounds. Percocet wasn't working. They switched it to Dilaudid in pill form. That's going to be important in a little bit. So I was on that, and I was stayed on it for quite a while. Go back to Kyrgyzstan after I'm already healed. It was our time was done in Uzbekistan. Our relief was there. We went back to Kyrgyzstan. Was still in Kyrgyzstan for quite a while. That ended up we were there for almost a year, if not a year. I got to meet Robin Williams at that in that duty station, which was really cool. He and I sat down and had, or it wasn't just me, really a bunch of us sat down and had dinner with him. Told him that I wanted to be in radio ever since I saw Good Morning Vietnam as a kid. He told me I had a perfect face for radio, so I'm sorry that you guys have to look at it today, but and I should just be using my voice, but you know, that was really cool. That was a really cool experience for me. And then I get back home and still had no control of my finances. I went on leave and I used the government credit card for gas and other purchases I wasn't supposed to use unless we were out, like TDY. That's how I got in trouble in the Air Force. And then they gave me the option to get out because I'd already been in so much trouble with the finances and stuff like that. And I got out with a general, under honorable conditions, discharge. Couch surfed at my buddy Jim's. I was in the military with him. Couch surfed at his house for a while. Went back down to live with my dad after a couple of months. And again, like during this whole time, I'm drinking, right? I'm getting drunk almost all the time. Started DJing at a karaoke bar. That became my main source of income. Went from that to being a DJ at a strip club in Portland, Oregon. Became a general manager of the strip club. Trying to find the girl I wanted to be with. I was at that point like, okay, I wanted to get married. I wanted to settle down, type of thing. And I do not recommend dating dancers. Just don't do it. But I did, and I got my heart stomped in. Drugs were a thing, like really bad, to the point where I learned I can make money, and I was able to buy an ounce of coke for $600 and flip half of it to the owner of the strip club for $600, and then the other half was pure profit. Did that for a couple of months, and then people started asking me about drugs, and at that point I realized that, you know, my name is getting out there, or I got paranoid thinking my name was getting out there. I was like, I'm done with this life. I needed to get out of Portland. I'm done with the strip club stuff. So I thought, I went to go live with my mom in Virginia and lived with her for a while. Got a job as security at a hotel, started smoking weed, and that was okay, but it wasn't like fulfilling enough. I was working nights. I was tired of working nights, so I found another job at a karaoke bar, DJing again, because I love doing it. I love being on the microphone. I love being a DJ. Did that for a while. Went to another bar, was DJing there, and again, just alcohol, just non-stop drinking. Bad relationships, bad temper, just like I didn't really get into very many fights. I mean, I'd gotten into some, but not very many. But I'd had bad temper. The drinking was bad. And then I went to Chicago one of those years for St. Patrick's Day. Fell in love with it. And I came back, and then after a couple months, I decided I was going to move to Chicago and go live with my uncle, and I did. We lived at my mom's biological dad's house, my grandpa. But I didn't really know him until I moved, until I moved out there, because he wasn't a part of my life. My grandma, and who I consider my grandpa, her husband, was actually my mom's stepdad. that was my grandma and grandpa. And you know what I mean? That's who took care of me as a kid. They loved me as a kid. It was good. So Irish family, always drinking. Jameson always around. We were just always drunk. And then I met my kid's mom while DJing at a bar one night. And we exchanged numbers, and then we were having a birthday party for myself, and I invited her, and she came over, and then she stayed the night and never left. We ended up getting together, ended up proposing, and like we were trying to figure our lives out. Like we lived with my uncle, but that turned into a huge debacle because I wasn't working. I was going back to school for radio, and we after that Gina and I moved into her mom's house in her basement and like living together until we found our own place. I graduated right before I graduated school, found out that Gina was pregnant. I also went back to DJing at a strip club. I was DJing nights there, going to school during the day, I was DJing during the day there, going to school at night. I'm sorry, like it was a while ago now, but that was happened. And they allowed me to use my credits or what my skills were at the DJ or the strip club as the intern credits. And then I did intern at a radio station after found out that after I found out that we were pregnant. So I was like driving to Aurora, Illinois. We were living in Des Plaines, Illinois, and like it's just all over the place, like burning the candle at both ends, if you will. And graduated the radio station school, and when I did, that was the same time that iPhones came out and the radio industry died. Yes, radio industry died for the most part when that happened, and it was really hard to get a job. Gina being pregnant, I mean, I got job offers outside of the area we were living in. It was a suburb of Chicago. You know, it was the number 3 market in the United States at the time. Probably is still the number 3 market, and so it was really hard to get a job there in the Chicago area, but I got job offers in like Oklahoma and Nebraska in the middle, like nowhere. And she didn't want to move. She wanted to get away from her mom or her family, especially being pregnant. I was like, okay. So I stuck it out. Went to go work for Target for a little bit. Then I got a job at factory. And keep in mind that during all of this, I wasn't walking with the Lord. I believed in God, but I treated it like it was nothing type of thing. Like, whatever, I'm still going to do what I want. When my oldest was born, I stopped drinking as much. Like, I would still drink, but it wasn't an everyday thing, right? It was it went down to every once in a while because I had kids. Gina did not stop. She stopped while she was pregnant, but when after she had the kids, she went back into party mode and wanted to be a party person. And I was like, we would get drunk together at weddings and things like that. Wedding got put on. Our wedding plans got put on hold for initially at first for financial reasons, and then once I started working, we brought the wedding plans back. But she was pregnant. She wanted to fit her in her dress again. She'd already bought her dress at this point. So they got put on hold again. And then we got pregnant with my youngest daughter, Molly. And again, she wanted to fit in her dress again and all that. Try to make life work. Yeah, we fought a lot. And, that was a toxic relationship too. I wasn't good. She wasn't good, Not that she's not a good person and I'm not a good person. We just weren't good for each other. It was not meant to be. It was not a relationship put together by Lord, right? It was a relationship built on lust to begin with, and man, my kids had to deal with that. But I'll get there in a second. in 2014, I found out that she cheated on me in my own bed and wanted to talk to her about it. She didn't want to talk. She blamed it on being on Ambien and drinking and all this other stuff. I'm not going to go into detail. I don't need to go into detail, but she got caught. And I wasn't that good either. I wasn't a good person. I was talking to other females, maybe not have physically done anything with them, but I was talking to them. We had gone on a break, and then I did hook up with somebody, but Gina and I got back together. That person was back out of the picture, and I was fully focused trying to be on Gina, but I got made to feel like the whole cheating thing was my fault to begin with, and I had to walk on eggshells around her, and I did not think that was I didn't think I was right. I just wasn't in it anymore. My heart wasn't in it. I stayed together with her for the kids. 6 months later, I got hit in the head with a hoist, and I went home. I should have gone to the hospital because I still have the dent in my head. But I went home and took the next couple of nights off of work because of the headaches. And I was supposed to get a doctor's note before I went back. I forged one and got caught. Lost my job. The very next day, Gina found out because I work nights, and instead of going directly home, because I was in at 7 o'clock at night. I got fired, was back or out of there by 8:30, and instead of going home, I decided to go to the movies. I went and watched Ant-Man, and then drove around our little town that we lived in at the time until it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I went home, went to sleep on the couch. She woke up. I lied to her, told her that I just got home and I fell asleep, and she was like, "Oh, the truck is cold. What are you talking about? You just got home." And I was like, "Well, I lied to her." Told her that I lost my job. She was texting me all the stuff she expected: the house to be perfectly clean, the windows washed, walls washed, all the laundry done. She wanted the house spotless. Trying to talk to me like she was my mom, and I was not having it. And I went out that day, like that next day, and was putting in applications for other jobs. I found a job actually, either that day or the next day, doing the same thing I did at the factory at a different factory, and but when Gina came home, we said, "It's like, can't do this anymore. I just can't." She said the same thing, and we broke up. I moved out after 2 weeks, and when I moved out, she had found somebody almost immediately and had him moved in, and which just led me to believe that she was still like messing around, or at least talking to other people, even after I buckled down and tried to look at her as the mother of my kids. And we split up. That hurt my kids so bad. The toxic relationship still kept going between her and I. She told me that she was going to turn my kids against me, that I'm never going to get them, type of thing. Morgan ended up with behavioral problems and suicidal ideology at a young age, so she ended up hospitalized multiple times. And I was the lonely guy, but still drinking. Like, I went back to drinking hardcore after Gina and I split up. When I didn't have the kids, I was drunk. When I had the kids, which was like every other weekend, I wasn't drunk. But I wasn't paying attention enough to them. I was living my life online, and I put that above my kids. And that was the beginning of when I started to lose them. And a lot of things happened. Like, I went to go work at a grocery store, became a deli manager at the grocery store after a couple of years. Lost that job too, due to false allegations of sexual harassment, when I was actually the one being harassed, but there was no proof of it. The girl that turned me in had shown text messages that were supposedly from me, but I had blocked her because she was sending me pictures and stuff I didn't ask for. And when I blocked her, I deleted her contact, like all of that stuff. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I get pulled into HR, got in trouble. I couldn't prove my story, and I could not bring up the text message. I tried to call my service provider, Xfinity. They said there was nothing to do. I got to call Apple, so I tried to call Apple, and this was right after the whole thing where people's iClouds were getting hacked and all that stuff was being put out on the internet. So iPhone had changed their security stuff up, and so when you delete it, like it was gone for good. So I couldn't prove my story, lost my job, stayed on unemployment for a while. This was COVID, like middle of COVID, during all this. So it was April of that year that I lost April 2020 is when I lost my job at the grocery store. And I think I was only unemployed for like 2 or 3 months. I started working at a bar. I was still DJing at this time too. I was DJing in the area, karaoke, regular DJing, stuff like that. But it wasn't enough to really survive off of. It got us the food, but I couldn't pay rent. Got the job at the bar. Again, it was enough just to get food, really, for my daughters and I. And I went into deep depression. Wasn't cleaning. Wasn't doing anything. I had custody of my oldest daughter at the time because of the behavioral things. Her and her mom were not getting along, and I got mad at her mom for always throwing her in the hospital. And so I told her she's going to come live with me. She lived with me for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And, we made that work. But I was not a good dad. Like, again, I was putting online stuff in front of the kids, and I thought it was okay because that's all my kids wanted to do. It seemed like that's all they wanted to do too, but they learned that from me. Morgan had said some comments while she was at school, and she ended up in the hospital again. I had no choice. Like, they called CPS. It was bad. Morgan took videos of the house, the way it looked, because I wasn't cleaning. I wasn't doing parental duties. I wasn't taking care of things. And I lost Morgan. She went back to live with her mom after the hospital. And went harder in online stuff. And I met somebody online. Thought that was going to go the distance. Moved out to New Jersey because of it. And 3 months after I moved here, we weren't together like anymore. It was like, I thought it was love. It was not. She went back to with her ex, and I was devastated. Also during this time, like, kids weren't talking to me, didn't want to talk to me, and said some really hurtful things, and I was going to go kill myself. My plan was to drive out to the Pine Barrens here in New Jersey, where people get lost all the time, and get lost and just fade away. Like, nobody will know who I was. Nobody would care. Like, just die. So I am driving like a maniac down these back roads as I'm heading there, and I got told to stop, and I did. Actually, the girl that I was there for, that I moved there for, called me while I was driving because somebody got wind that something was wrong with me online, like on this app, and Like, she called me anyway. I stopped, turned around, went back home, called 911, got myself checked in to mental hospital. I was only there for 3 days, like 72 hours. It felt like 3 months. It was bad. Got out, went back home. I was living in my buddy John's. I started therapy. While going through therapy, I got an exercise of writing my daughters a letter. I started writing. Started to rhyme, so I started rhyming the whole thing. That letter turned into another letter to my friends, which turned into another letter to Liz, who was the girl at the time, and then ended with a suicide note. I turned that into a song. I released it, and I felt good. Like, it was good to get it out on paper, right? And even it was very depressing. It's a horribly depressing song. And I did release it. I released it like on Apple Music and all that stuff. And my therapist heard it. He said that was a really good exercise as far as like getting out, but I probably shouldn't have released it. It's too late. And continue through therapy and talking about stuff. I was on the phone with a friend of mine one night, and she and I were talking. The memories from my childhood came rushing back, like bad. Like, it was like floodgates had opened. I don't know what she said that made it happen. It was like floodgates had just opened, and I started remembering all of it, the details, everything about what happened with the abuse as a kid. And oh man, it wrecked me again. Like it, and I was working at a butcher shop at this time, and I had some friends there. I made a friend there, Andrea, and she kept trying to get me to go to church, and I was like, no, I'm not going to church. I believe in God, but I also believe that God hates me. That was my exact words. And I remember in October, it was October of 2022, she had finally convinced me, and I went like 1 week, and I was like, it was okay. The food was good, that type of thing. I went back the next week, and I think at the third visit that I was there, I started bawling. Like, I was uncontrollably crying, and people were praying over me, and I could not. I couldn't understand the feeling. I started praying. A buddy of mine, Matt, gave me a Bible, and I was looking stuff up. I wasn't really reading it, but I was looking through it and all that. And I tried to get like head first in there, but my heart posture still wasn't in it. So I still like fell away for a while, and then would come back and then fall away, and then I ended up with some medical problems. Ended up in the hospital in the end of August of 2023, and I was in the hospital for a little over a month. Like, I was in one hospital. I left because of they didn't have a GI on staff. I was having stomach issues, and I was there already for a week, or almost a week, and I got tired of it. And I was like, I spent my birthday in the hospital, so I went in August 27th. I got out September 4th. Was home for 24 hours, and then I'm back in the ER at a different hospital because I wasn't going back to that one. And had to go through a bunch of tests, got a colonoscopy, found out that I have Crohn's disease. And then started working, was put on steroids, and apparently I'm very, very sensitive to steroids as far as like the side effects. But while I was in the hospital during this time, like, I made friends with the nurses because I was there for so long, and I was ambulatory, which means I was able to walk around. They didn't have to pamper me, if you will. And was talking with everybody. I was having a good time, and I remember I was getting pretty devastated one night, and I was praying for peace. I was like, God, please just give me peace. Like, I don't know what's going on. Just, I want peace. He pointed me to John 14:27, And that is, the verse is, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives do I give. Let not your heart be troubled, nor let it be afraid. I might have missed a part in there, but that verse, John 14:27, is my verse. Like, it was written on my heart that day. And then I was supposed to get an enema before the colonoscopy, and of course, there was the most attractive nurse in the hospital. I felt was supposed to give it to me, and I'm very modest, right? I've always been very modest, very kind of like ashamed of my body. I didn't like the way I looked, and so the last thing I wanted to do was drop my pants, well, lift up my gown at this point, in front of this, attractive nurse, and she has to mess around with my butt, for an enema. Like, as she's getting things ready, I'm just praying silently to God. And I'm like, God, please, just, if this is your will, just give me peace with it. Like, I don't want to do this, but if this is what has to happen, just please give me peace, or put me to sleep, something, while this is happening. She gets a phone call in the middle of it. She leaves and comes back. It's the good news. The doctor doesn't have to, the doctor canceled the enema. You don't need it. And I was like, thank God. It was a sigh of relief. And God answered the prayer right then and there. It was so, that was the first time I witnessed the power of prayer being answered immediately. And got the diagnosis, left the hospital, ended up back in because the pain worsened. Went back on steroids. Was on a different floor this time, and as I'm walking around, there was a guy that was at the other end of the hall from where my room was, and because I was just walking up and down the hall, and I didn't want the Hepburn shot, that's why I was doing all this walking. And the guy, I was told, like, he doesn't get out of bed, he's catatonic, he doesn't talk, nothing, and he was on 24-hour like suicide watch. As I walked down the first time, he was in his bed, walked back, do another lap, he's standing up and he's staring at me, not saying a word, he's just staring at me. And I keep walking back and forth, and all he does is just stare at me, not talking. And I just felt like a presence of evil, if you will. It was just evil. It was just, oh man, like I'm fully convinced that there was a demonic entity there. And I was still in the hospital for a couple of days, but I noticed, like, from when that guy stood up, like, slowly but surely, every room from his moving down to mine, the people in that room, they all started going crazy, if you will, like screaming at the nurses, biting, spitting, like all sorts of nasty stuff, calling them names. Some of the nurses were screaming back because they got fed up or whatever, right? It's just got that bad. And when it hit the room right next to mine, I started getting this nasty headache, like a migraine headache. And I've gotten migraines before. Usually when that happens, I got to sit in complete silence and complete dark. Like, I won't be sleeping, but that's what I got to do, right? Can't do that in a hospital. There is no complete silence. There is no complete dark. I wrapped my t-shirt around my eyes. I actually went into the bathroom, closed the door, lay down on the bathroom floor, and I was trying to get myself off of that floor. Like, I needed to get off that floor. The nurse came and tried to talk to me. I said, unless you're telling me that I'm moving into a different floor, I don't want to hear it. They said they're going to try to do something. The chief of medicine, like, I talked to her, and I was like, I end up laying into her there, yelling at her and stuff. And when they said that they couldn't get me moved into a room, I was like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm out. And they're like, well, you can't, we don't advise us. I'm out. You can't keep me here. This isn't prison. I'm leaving. Took out the IV, started walking home. The hospital I was at was like 14 miles away from where I was living, and I was walking. I got about halfway there when my buddy John found me and picked me up, took me the rest of the way. And it was just, when I got home, like the headache was still there. I was still just pounding. I went and smoked weed. I had stopped drinking at this point because the Crohn's disease, you know, wasn't really allowing me to drink. And was got into like super deep depression. When I was going through therapy, they put me on Wellbutrin to help with it. I had gotten so bad that I wrote a suicide note again. Didn't do anything about it. Didn't have a plan, nothing. I was like, I thought I was going to die. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm done. Woke up, read the note that I wrote, and realized that the Wellbutrin, that's one of the side effects on it. Also the side effects of the steroids, which is the rage, which is why I was yelling at the chief of medicine and all that. And then, anyway, I stopped the Wellbutrin. I had to stop working because I was on, whatchamacallit, immunosuppressants. Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disease. Basically, if you don't know what it is, it means my immune system's attacking my intestines. And I had, so I was on immunosuppressants. I couldn't work in the public like that anymore because anytime somebody would get sick, it'd be 10 times worse for me. So I ended up not being able to work. Ended up being almost homeless, and went to live at a hotel for a couple of weeks. It was like $500 a week to live there in a really crappy motel thing, and like one of the ones that you hear about, the drug motels. That's pretty much what it was. I stayed to myself for the 2 weeks I was there, in my own room, whatever. Didn't talk to anybody. It was just by myself, and it was over Thanksgiving to. I stayed there from Thanksgiving until like the beginning part of December of 2023. During that time, I was praying, though. I was still praying. I was trying to work on a podcast, the first iteration of my podcast, which I couldn't keep up with it because I wasn't doing it like this. This is not edited very much. You know what I mean? I'm doing this like a live stream. I'm better at live streaming. So the editing process was driving me nuts. It failed because I couldn't keep up with it. And so I was working on that there. Then I was doing I was praying, though. I was praying to God, like, help me find a place. And then the place I'm in now, he showed it to me on Facebook Marketplace. It's the best way I could put it. And it was in my price range. I had just enough money to move in when I got there. Like, it was just, everything was working out perfectly. The Lord had his hand on it the whole way. And then I just kind of became a hermit and was trying to do Bible study and all that. And then I fell away again and was doing my own thing again. And, went to, it was the Olympics, the opening of the Olympics in 2024. When they were mocking the Last Supper, and I got extremely angry. So I went to go make a TikTok video, and it was I was going to start attacking these people. And as soon as I opened up TikTok, Brandon Lakes, that's who I praised, was coming out. So he just released the last verse as a teaser video, and that was the first thing that popped up. And it says, I want to love like Jesus, that kind of grace. I want to live like I got no more precious time to waste. And when I heard that, I started bawling. I fell to my face on the floor, crying and praying out and calling out to God and to save me. And you know what? During that time, as I'm crying, my face is on the floor, I swear I saw Jesus's feet, like right below me, and like the hole in the feet and everything. I fully believed I saw it. He saved me, like, because it was legit that time. And I am so thankful, because I was heading down the wrong path again, and I was going to, I don't even know what would have happened next. And I became on fire for God again. Got baptized for real this time, because that's where my posture was. And, there's issues with the church I was going to. They ended up splitting up, but Andrea and Dylan, her husband, they started their own home church. And I started going back, and I started learning more, and I started getting even closer to God, and praying every day, and reading his word every day. Like, not even like, not full chapters. I was still like reading sections. I would pray like, God, what do you need me to see today, type of thing. And then the full chapters and full books I was doing was at church. But I ended up in the hospital again this past May, and my second day there, my Dylan challenged me to get rid of social media, and I did. I didn't delete my accounts at that point, but I deleted all the apps off my phone, and I stayed off of it the whole time I was in the hospital. Had surgery, and during this time, I'm praying with people. I'm praying with people in the hospital. Like, I'm praying with roommates. I'm talking to them about God. I'm actually going out and like spreading His word. I'm talking to the nurses about God. I'm actually, like, I was doing what I was supposed to do as a Christian. And got out of the hospital and tried to do too much at one time there for a little bit, but it's okay, because God has pretty much healed me at this point, from the surgery part. I had a couple of weeks where I was just like down in the dumps and lonely. Loneliness is a thing. Like, that is a thing for me. But I was looking on like Christian Mingle, the Christian dating apps, which are just garbage, by the way, though I don't recommend those either. And then I went to this app called Grow, and it's a Christian social media app. It's all Christian. It's like Facebook, very basic Facebook, or way Facebook used to be when it first came out. And like, I was posting on there, and I was satisfying my social media urges, and but I stopped because it was kind of boring. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction there. I was watching The Chosen like nonstop. I was reading my Bible, listening to nothing but Christian music at this point. Like, I don't listen to secular music anymore. I listen to all Christian music. Listening to Christian audiobooks, listen like audiobook Bibles and things like that. And then I started stepping out more, talking to people about my faith, talking to people about Jesus. And every single time that happens, like, I just felt more and more refreshed. And now I have met somebody, and she's just on fire for God as I am. We talk every morning. We pray together every morning. We talk every night. When we're praying, we're talking about God. We do Bible studies together, and it has been such a blessing. And God has prepared me, because she's got trauma in her life too, right? And it's really similar. Like, everything that's happened to us is really, really similar. And I feel like God has prepared me for my one person, and this person is it. And she's just been, this has just been so amazing, like getting to know her in Christ, and growing together in Christ, because this is what I needed. This is what I wanted. And it's the same for her. She wanted a godly man, a man that went after Christ first. I wanted a woman that had wants to put Christ first. We both believe that there is no such thing as a 50-50 relationship. It has to be 100-100 and 100% focused on Christ first. And it's just, this is absolutely an amazing relationship. And I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for God for this. And I guess I went and took this long story to tell you guys, though, that like you may feel that your world is ending because some sort of trauma, or you've gone through bad relationships or whatever, and it is not true. That Christ will save you. If he could do it for me, he could do it for you. And it is so important to come to Christ, especially in these days that we are at now. And we need to just we need to submit everything to him. And I promise you, do that, and he will start giving you your heart's desires. He's not a genie, but the things that we really, really want in life, the relationship, a godly relationship, a loving relationship, a caring relationship, like that is all, I'm getting all of that right now. And I'm working, like I'm going to try to get back in touch with my kids, and like, I got to keep trying with that. And God, I have full faith that he's going to restore that relationship too with those beautiful children of mine. And guys, this is God is so amazing and so powerful and so good that just give him a try. You give him a try, and he's going to start changing your life for the better. And it doesn't matter where you're at right now. It doesn't matter if you feel worthy or not, if you feel dirty, disgusting. He doesn't care, because, as my buddy Ralph would say, you don't clean yourself before you go to the shower. So go to Jesus and he will cleanse you. That is what's amazing. And all that stuff in my past, I see it now. I see it as building blocks, as like God didn't want that to happen to me, but because it did, he's using it, and he's using it to be able to tell this story and to help other people out there that might be going through the same things. Having that compassion for other people, he has changed me so much, guys. And I implore you, just to seek him, and you will find him. I don't even know how long this video has been yet, and I just thank you for taking the time to watch this. If you watched this far, I pray that every single one of you come to Christ, if you're not already, and I really hope that this reaches the person that it needs to. I love you all. Thank you for watching.